Remember when 600 horsepower was the preserve of only the most super of supercars? I do. But now there's a whole segment of SUVs that has 600 horsepower plus. That's insane. Imagine that kind of power on our humble Indian roads. But you know what's even more insane than an SUV with 600 horsepower? One with 700 horsepower.
Yes, the Aston Martin DBX 707 has touched down here in India and at a price of 4.63 crore rupees ex-showroom before options. Its price is every bit as extravagant as its power output. Now, I had the pleasure of driving this car in Sardinia in Italy earlier this year and I came away with two things. One, at 707 horsepower, it is, yes, the most powerful luxury SUV around. And second, this car handles like nothing this big has any right to. But that was then, this is now, and today I'm going to tell you what this Aston Martin DBX 707 is like to drive on our Indian roads.
And hey, if you like this sort of video, you know what to do. Smash the thumbs up button, share it all around, and make sure you're subscribed to Autocar India. We don't have a lot of time with the 707 today, so I'm going to keep it brief. And I'll start with the most important thing. Just what does this much horsepower in a car this big feel like on the twisty, bumpy, narrow and, thanks to the monsoon, broken roads that we are all too familiar with?
I think it's on our Indian roads with all the bumps and irregularities that we have and everything you have to constantly be aware of. Your senses are at their very sharpest, which makes a car like this, an SUV like this, even more exciting somehow. Unlike a lot of other super SUVs of its ilk, this is not one that sort of holds your hand and gently guides you into the performance. Oh no, even in this GT mode, which is the mildest of them all, it's only docile if you're absolutely gentle with it. The moment your throttle pedal goes beyond a certain point, it wakes up to full aggression. The DBX 707 wastes no time in introducing you to all 707 of its horsepower and 900 of its Newton meters. It just takes the lightest flex of your right foot to wake it all up. But well, I guess such prodigious amounts of power and torque are quite hard to contain. Frankly, you can only exploit so much of it on a really narrow road like this, but I suppose that's what the BIC is for. And sure, slightly wider highways and things like that is where this car will probably come alive. Man, is it edgy! The acceleration in this thing is just bizarre. How is a car this big doing this? There is some torque steer. Can you imagine this big four-wheel drive car with a rear bias still has torque steer? That's what 900 Nm will do.
All that power needs to be channeled effectively though, and along with the AMG sourced V8, Aston has drafted in a version of AMG's 9-speed MCT gearbox. However, while it works well in most scenarios, things aren't always so rosy.
Now, I've put the gearbox in manual mode and frankly, in my opinion, that's the best way to use it because shifts are quick, shifts are ferocious. I found that if you leave it to its own devices, even in Sport Plus mode, it can fumble a little bit at the very limit. It's perfectly fine in everyday driving.
The good news is that small inconsistency of the gearbox is more than made up for by the handling package.
So, the turn-in is incredibly sharp. The steering is not overtly heavy, it's got a nice weight to it, but it's not going to strain you or feel like hard work.
Instead, what it is very rewarding. Just enough feedback, not too heavy, and sharp as hell. Such a quick, sharp steering actually takes some getting used to in a car so big, as does the fact that this huge vehicle quite simply dances through the bends. There's this rotation in a corner that this is just so unlike an SUV. You expect that from a two-seater, but not from an SUV. However, you can't cheat physics entirely. The 48-volt roll suppression system does its very best, as does the standard air suspension, which, as you might expect, is firm but compliant, rather than outright soft like a full-on luxury SUV. You can even raise it to go off-road, but when you're in Sport Plus, it is lowered and stiffened up considerably. But really, if there's a weak spot to the right, the bigger culprit is the wheels. Another thing you feel rather immediately are the 23-inch wheels on this car. They're big, they're wide, they have a huge contact patch on the road. And yeah, this car rumbles along quite a bit, even in its most comfy setting. But I guess that's something you're going to have to learn to live with. If you can opt for a 22-inch size, definitely do it. I also find that for our roads, Sport is a little bit better than Sport Plus. Sport Plus is just too hard on the suspension and a little too twitchy on the steering. Sport has a little bit of slack, and that lets you be comfortable while also getting enough performance and excitement out of the car. Wow! Brakes, carbon ceramics as standard on the 707. And boy, do you need them with all this mass, all that power and all that torque. Just a bunch of opposing forces, aren't they? Is this too much power? Well, no, there's no such thing as too much power. But you better be on your toes. That was a lot. And while I let my heart rate return to medically acceptable levels, why don't we have a look at what they've changed on the car? The regular DBX, in my opinion, is one of the greatest feats of large SUV design around, managing to be elegant and purposeful all at once without compromising on space and practicality. I think the 707 sacrifices some of that elegance with some of the changes they've made, like the new front bumper with its horizontal DRLs, an even larger grille, and the addition of so many sharp edges on an otherwise curvy shape. At the back, you'll find a huge rear diffuser low down, vents in the bumpers, quad exhausts, and a more aggressive roof spoiler. You can even, like I said earlier, opt for smaller 22-inch wheels rather than these 23s, not just for the better ride, but also because the designs are more interesting. Overall though, the DBX design still stands out for being incredibly dynamic and head-turning. I love those headlights, the vents in the bonnet, the pod-like wing mirrors, and the way the rear slams down and then rises up again in a ducktail. It's bold, to say the least. The interior of this particular car, trimmed in grey on grey as it is, might not seem bold at all. But if you customize it with some of the many options in Aston's catalogue, its brilliant design will really stand out. You can mix and match leather colors, contrast stitching, inlays, metal trim, and so much more. And here's where the DBX leans into super luxury rather than super sport territory. The driving experience is all about the performance, but in here you have 16-way adjustable front seats, heated and cooled front and back. The leather is soft, the metal is cool, and the ambience is dripping with quality. The back seat is pretty good too. And you even get a large boot. If there's one area the DBX comes up short, it's infotainment. It uses a version of Mercedes' 2-generation-old system which feels dated now and isn't even a touchscreen. But this is something that will be changed with the facelift. The DBX 707 then has proper supercar performance, and amazingly, despite its size, the handling to match too. But its rarefied corner of the market is about to get a bit more crowded. Before the end of 2022, Lamborghini will launch the Urus Performante, which is meant to be a new benchmark for SUV handling. And then, of course, next year will come the 725 horsepower Ferrari Purosangue, which will also surpass it on power. But that's then, and this is now, and the DBX 707 is a compelling super SUV whose driver involvement will suck you in if its dramatic design and sumptuous interior don't do it first. But even in this segment, you can't ignore the price. At 4.63 crore rupees, it's considerably more than an Urus or a Bentayga. And until the Ferrari comes along, the only SUV more expensive is a Rolls-Royce. But then, all Aston Martins tend to be priced at a premium, don't they? The difference is, this time, it well and truly has the bragging rights to back it up.